Welcome to the Heartland Insiders podcast. I'm Gordon Six Killer along with my buddy Tom Stock. And our guest today is Carolyn Jett. Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful day out today. Hot for October, huh?
Right, but really nice.
It is. It is nice. So, Carolyn, you're here because we wanted to talk to you about this project you've been taking on, and that's the restoration of some murals. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us how that came about? Where did they come from? And then what's your significance to these murals and who's helped you?
Okay, well, and I'm just the face of it. They're not mine.
Whose are they?
Well, I don't know who they belong to. I guess they belong to the city. About in 1992, 91 era, the Art Guild, Bates County Art Guild, had got together and they had money. And they wanted to do a project, and so they hired a local artist to make these murals, and then had them put on the several of the buildings.
I'm sorry, what year did you say that was?
93.
92.
Okay. I know the artist signed one of the artworks as 93. We can't find records of it otherwise, like in city council minutes or anything, but. And I think that was because the guild bought them. They raised money, and they had some money, and they had them put on the buildings. If you are from here and were around at that time, you would have seen them. There was one on the Bates County Abstract Building that faced to the south.
So that's on the southwest corner.
Yes,
on
the southwest corner of the square. There's one on the southeast corner of the square that was on Pursley McNabb, which is now McNabb Law.
I'm fairly new here, so I'm still learning this town as I go here.
Across from where the little green space park is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. And then there was also one that was right across the street from that on what is now Luna Umbra Winery. Mm-hmm. And they were up for about 10 years, as far as we can tell. But there was a problem with the condition of the buildings. A lot of them were put on old brick. And I don't know if they actually fell off or if people just thought they were going to fall off.
For it being out in the open like that in the weather, did they have to put some kind of special conditioning on those?
On the murals themselves?
Yeah.
I believe he varnished them. They held up pretty well. There is some UV damage and just crazing because of being in the sunlight, and some of them are faded. But that varnish did help hold up.
Yeah.
Now, the murals themselves, were they painted directly on the building or on panels that were put on?
They were put on panels, and it's some sort of they're 4x8 foot panels.
Yeah, they're big. We've got one. I mean, they're pretty stealthy.
Right. They're like a sheet of plywood. But there's some. I think it's what they use for shower surrounds, and so it's got aluminum on one side, and then it must be a real thin masonite on the other side, and it's not wood in between them. So that has helped preserve them also. Yeah.
Weather the storms, so to speak. Yeah.
So whatever they had, they could paint right on that masonry? Is that what they did?
Masonite is an acceptable, like it'll hold, I guess it has enough tooth to it that it'll hold the paint. They had problems where they thought they were going to fall down, so the city took them down and put them in storage. So then fast forward to right before COVID time, and the city had created a historic preservation commission and put Melissa Phillips in charge of it. And if you ever met Melissa, you would understand she just was a very driven, persistent person. She wanted those murals put back up. She remembered them.
I don't blame her. They're neat. From what I've seen of them, they're very neat, and in historic nature, and which I'm a history buff, and I can see why somebody would have passion to have those back up and restored.
Yeah, and she was really a history buff. And they're distinctive. They set our town apart. So she got on it, and she contacted the original artist and said, would you refurbish them? And he said, yeah, probably $3,000 each. Well, we have no budget. No budget. And so it was like, well, that's not happening. So we went to where they were stored and looked at them. And at that point, I don't know if what you know about organizations, but we also have an Electric City Downtown, which is a Main Street organization.
I've heard of it.
Okay, and it has 4 parts of it, and one of them is the design committee. Well, I was on the design committee, and we had a bunch of artists, retired art teachers, and one lady was a retired sign painter, and we had a really active, good group. I'm like, we could do this. We could fix them. And so we got permission, got them out of storage, and started working on them.
How long ago was that?
Time flies, but I think it's just over 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm sure so.
You know, we were so foolish. The first one had a little bit of damage. The second one didn't have very much damage at all. Like, part of the problem is they have a aluminum backing to them, and when they would, like, move them or do things with them, they would scrape against each other. So a lot of them have scratches on them. Anyway, the problem with fixing that stuff, that's pretty small potatoes. But we got to this final one, and it probably on some of the boards, about a third of the paint has peeled away.
Oh, wow.
And so and a lot of it is very faded. It has the most damage of any of them.
So, Carolyn, how many murals were there? And like about how many panels per mural?
So there were 3 murals. One mural was 6 panels, and 2 of them were 9 panels each.
So like at 9 panels, that's going to be like 36 feet wide and 8 feet tall. These are big murals.
They're huge, and you can't just work on them everywhere. You know, to be able to have them side by side really helps, so you make sure your colors are consistent as you go across.
How do you do that? Make sure the colors are consistent. I mean, like, do you just start at the top and work a panel down, or do you like try to do a color on each of the panels so the color's the same, or is it a mix of all of that?
Really, it's been one mural at a time, and then putting them together and saying, okay, does that either blend or is it identical?
Yeah, how did you match the paint? Did you just do it by pitch? Did you take pictures of the mural and then go to a paint? How would one do that?
We've just mixed the paints ourselves
and
to
just
mix them.
hide it by what you think.
Yeah. I taught school. I taught art for 22
tell us about
years.
That. Yeah, please tell us about that.
Well, I taught here at Butler, and high school art, and probably, one of those like ridiculous talents that you have that like nobody cares about, but I can match colors.
Okay, well, good.
I can
I cannot match colors.
No, I can't.
I think what you're able to do, I think that's a skill set that not everybody has. So that's part of your artistry makeup. So real quick, how long did you teach again?
I taught art for 22 years, and then I taught gifted kids for 8. But I've had some really outstanding artists. There's one guy that you might start seeing. He lives out of Amoret, but Ned Ducharme.
I wanted to ask you real quick, just kind of as a broad stroke, as you're restoring this, what do the scenes depict, and what is the historical significance of these murals?
Okay, so one of the scenes, the one that was on Pursley McNabb, was actually a picture of Zebulon Pike coming through Bates County, because they weren't just limited to Butler. Anyway, coming through Bates County and meeting the Osage Indians in 1806. And it was like 100-year anniversary thing of it. So Zebulon Pike was kind of like Lewis and Clark. He was sent out west to look at the Louisiana Purchase and see what sort of resources there were and how things were with the Indians, and then make it to the Rocky Mountains, where Pikes Peak was named after him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
see, I learned things on our podcast, folks, so stick around.
Yes. So I guess he came up the Arkansas River, did that kind of valley area, and he also came up the Osage. And when he got to this area, he met with the dominant tribe, which would have been the Osage Indians. And I wish I knew more about it, but if you're familiar with Harmony Mission
Right.
There was
Very little.
Okay, there was a Catholic mission down towards Rich Hill, which was about, bringing Jesus to the Indians, and also they had a school set up and everything there. And so that was also ministering to the Osage Indians. So,
Wow. That's an interesting story. So did Pike actually ever come to Butler proper, where you and I are sitting?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Really, it's hard to imagine, but Papinsville was kind of the center at that time. It was actually the county seat for a while.
For Bates County?
For Bates
Wow.
County.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that either.
River.
Yes, and they say that the riverboats actually came to Papinsville, which is hard for me to imagine, but...
Or maybe the rivers were higher back then than they are now.
Or maybe they just only came during flood stage.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Just grasping his straws here.
Okay, so that was one of them. So then another one was right across from that on Luna Umbra, and it faced towards the east, and it was the pioneering spirit. So then it was it showed different people who were outstanding related to Bates County. And so there was, one of them was our Robert Heinlein. So we have our library, Heinlein Library. He was a science fiction writer, and back in the days of hard science fiction.
Tell me, give me a time frame of years. What are we talking?
I think he probably wrote between like the late 50s to the 70s was what his most prolific era.
Okay.
My mom was into sci-fi, and so I read sci-fi too.
Was he known nationally?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Internationally.
Internationally, even.
Somebody told me that they were on the square on a Saturday, and this couple from Germany were trying to find his home.
Oh, yeah, that's international.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, internationally. So let me tell you some of the other people on that, because I kind of went down a rabbit hole there.
That was one of my questions I wanted to ask you. Who are some of the people on this that are helping?
Okay, so there's a picture of, I can't think of the guy's name. Anyway, he was Governor Bates, who Bates County was named for, and he was an early governor in this before even Missouri became a state. And so he had a lot to do with like the land and figuring out for when it was just territory.
And he's depicted on one of the murals.
He's depicted on it. And then there's two little men standing by a light post, and they are tigered and brush, and it says Brush Electric Company, and that is because we're the electric city, and that is because we were the first city west of the Mississippi to generate our own electric power as a community. And a group of, a delegation went to the Philadelphia World's Fair, saw the electricity. This was like 1906. Said, cool, we could do that. Went back, got investors, got a generator going. And
I am so glad you're sharing this, because since I've moved here, that was the first historical fact I learned about Butler. And I, my brain was like, well, how did that happen? There had to, and I was thinking like somebody in a county seat had pool with somebody in Washington, and they just went to the World's Fair, got the idea, and brought it back here.
Right. And, I hadn't really thought about it, but like people's homes weren't wired for it.
Right.
And so when they first did it, they strung up a few lights, but the big thing that they did was they put a light in the courthouse clock. And people were so awed by that, that, there's accounts where it says it was brighter than the full moon, and you could see it for miles, because it really was a big deal.
Yeah. Especially at that time, they're not used to seeing electric light, to see the town clock. Yeah, it was. But so you talked about some of the characters that are the historical characters, real people that are depicted. Any other ones?
There are two, a man and a woman who are obviously pioneers who are on it and are depicted pretty majorly, because we are influenced by people, people who came to this area, settled, and struggled to make it into a home for themselves.
Are there any panels for the Native Americans to see that were around that time? You said part of the story is Pike came to this area and he had to interact with the Native Americans. Is there any of that on any of the murals?
Right. Well, I think probably the Pappenville one is the one that comes the closest to that. And I'm always kind of, my ear to the ground, like listening, because I've done a lot of reading.
Right.
And I don't hear much as far as conflict here. Good. It feels like maybe that people were able to coexist for at least a certain amount of time.
One of those murals definitely portrays conflict.
Oh, yes, not with Native Americans. No. So our final one is brother against brother and
Civil
about
War.
The order number 11.
Tell us about that.
So, and again, I don't know what you know about Missouri
nothing.
During the Civil War, but...
Well, I know a little bit, but not specifically the number 11.
Okay, so Missouri
Order 11.
was entered into the Union as a compromise, and they were considered a slave state, and it was okay to have slaves in Missouri. Right across the border, you can almost throw a rock to Kansas. They were free state,
right?
And there were, all along this border, there was a lot of back and forth,
a lot of conflict, to say the least. There was conflict. There was actually even bloodshed.
Right.
At times,
yes. And they would make forays and run over across the line, guerrilla warfare, basically terrorism. They would scare people. They would kill people. They would steal supplies so that then for their army units. But this was all, most of it that was done was, vigilante. Okay, so things escalated, and there was a pretty horrific thing to try to get some of the raiders, like Quantrell, to quit going over there. They came and stole, kidnapped his wife and a sister and some of the children and stuff of these bushwhackers, which is what they called them, and just keeping them they weren't in prison, but it was a jail, and a terrible tragedy, a wall fell in and killed several of them. Well, then Quantrell was on the bloodbath and then killed like 150 people.
Wow.
It was just a massacre. And so then they're like, we got to do something, and this is, we don't have troops to go and keep all this, so we're just going to have everybody leave and burn this so there aren't crops and homes and, livestock and stuff.
So they could sustain themselves to carry on.
Yeah, right. So there was a Union general who said, this is order number 11, we're going to burn part of Jackson County, Cass County, and part of Vernon County. And they did. In Bates County, reportedly, there were like 2 structures left in the whole county.
So Bates was part of it, yeah.
Yeah, and they burned all of the square and, took out most of Harrisonville and on up that way. And so people left, and then sadly, they had to stay away for like 3 years, and when they came back, they charged them for their taxes, their late, property tax. So most people still couldn't live.
Wow.
So
all this drama you're talking about, it's like, I'll never complain about road rage again.
And so there is a lingering animosity. It's kind of like below the current or whatever, but towards Kansas, the border wars.
Yeah, those Jayhawkers.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And, you still...
And college football helps spur that on, believe me.
Well, I think maybe that's the safe outlet.
Hooray for college football. Back to the mural. So we kind of got on this subject. So there is one that shows some conflict. Was it directly the Order 11 that you just explained? And thank you very much for doing so. What is the conflict on that mural?
In the center of it, it has kind of a cameo area that shows the square being burned and people with all their belongings loaded up and soldiers there. And then there's also ones part of it that shows like soldiers. There's not any actual combat shown.
But the manifestations of the combat and what took place is kind of shown.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you. That is our guest, Carolyn Jett, explaining the project she has taken on of restoring some very historic murals in Bates County. Thank you, Carolyn. And I think those murals are in good hands. I'm Gordon Sixkiller, and my buddy over here, Tom Stock, and we're going to sign off. And thank you for listening to the Heartland Insiders podcast.